Hello, welcome to another episode of Vaadin Webinars. Today we're gonna talk to you about the amazing Valo theme that was introduced in Vaadin 7.3. My name is Teemu, and with me here in the studio is Jouni, who is the author of Valo.
Yeah, hi, and welcome on my part as well. So yeah, I was the author of the Valo theme, so that's why I'm here trying to teach how to actually use that. So we try to get people to use that more because it's one of the absolutely most greatest features of the Vaadin framework, like one of the latest features right before the awesome grid that we now have. So Valo was added in Vaadin 7.3. So we originally planned that for Vaadin 7 already, but unfortunately we didn't get that in time and it was pushed back to even 7.3. But anyway, if you don't know what Valo is, there's an excellent resource on vaadin.com. So vaadin.com/Valo is the promo page for this theme. And well, I could also tell that the name Valo is also a Finnish word like Vaadin, and Valo means literally it means light, like all the fine lighting we have here in our studio. And so the main point of Valo, what is it? It's a customizable theme. So you use Sass to define the look and feel, mainly the look of your theme.
Yeah.
And how it's different from like regular CSS is that you don't need to mess with the selectors as much or know the internal details, implementation details of the components you're theming, of all the Vaadin components. So there are these variables, functions and mixins that you can use to style them. So take a look at the page and see all the features that Valo has, like all the main features are pointed out here. So and then there's the demo application underneath here. So you could open this in an external window as well, so we get a bigger view of this thing. So of course Valo comes with a default variation built in, but we have also a couple of pre-built or demo versions of different variations here. In the demo you can try out different stuff, how to modify the theme. So this is something I quickly threw together before we launched Valo, and this pretty easily you can get these kind of results, so it doesn't require that much modifications to get all these variations. So, but you can still modify lots more using the actual API.
It looks cool.
Yeah.
Can you even update your Facebook status there? I guess not.
Yeah, there's the Facebook theme. It's kind of tries to mimic the Facebook look and feel, but you'll be the judge if it's even close. Anyway, if you want to check out the source for this, it's on GitHub. So there's a link here. So that takes you to GitHub, and all the different variations can be found underneath the themes folder.
Cool.
But if you want to try out like those different variations yourselves, you could use Sampler for that. So let's just pick up the standard button here, and then there's a cog icon for editing the sample, and then there's the theme tab. I'm not sure how many actually know that this exists here, but that's why I want to point it out. So by default it's the Valo theme, and then there are the same default variations that I've built. But let's pick, well, it's called social here. It's the same as the Facebook thing. So then there's the custom. So now we actually have some of the variables available, like preset here with the Facebook styles, and we could modify these here. So for instance, we could, well, set the border to 0, wait for the recompilation, and well, their border is gone, stuff like that. So you could easily try out something here, like set the unit size slightly bigger, get a bigger button, set the border back.
Yeah. Looks like you have some interesting variable names there, or some V shade or something like that.
Yeah.
So how do you know which ones are available, and is there some kind of documentation for this?
Yeah. So if we go back to the Valo page, so if you scroll down slightly more, all the way to the bottom, there's this link to the API documentation.
Yeah.
And that takes you to the SAS documentation for Valo.
Nice.
So this contains pretty much all the API that's available. So you can see there's quite a lot of stuff.
Yeah, quite a few.
Yes, but luckily there's great search functionality here. So you could just look for button and see all the stuff that's related to button. And this is really kind of your go-to source of information when you actually use Valo and try to customize your theme. All right.
So should we jump into some more examples?
Yes, that's what we're here for. So I would like to show some customizations that are easy to do, and then move on to stuff that's maybe not so easy to do. So I've taken a check out of the same Valo theme demo application that we just saw. It's running now in my local host. And, not that one. Well, it went to the correct place still. Okay, so this is running locally now, and I also have a theme set up called My Theme, which is based on Valo. So if you've done custom themes before, this looks pretty standard to you. You just import the theme you want, and then inside your theme selector, you include the main mixin of that theme. Yeah. That's it.
So maybe we could start with one of the common questions we already got beforehand. So with the default Valo, everything is quite big, and at least compared to Reindeer, everything is quite large and you can't fit so much information in one screen. So many people would like to scale it down a bit. So how can you do that?
Yeah, that's a common request I've heard also, and luckily that's very easy to do. And if you're wondering the reason, it's a conscious design decision that it's slightly larger than the previous themes. Just because when you start to build your first prototypes or stuff like that, it's nicer to see slightly bigger components than just teeny tiny stuff in the top left corner of your browser.
Makes sense.
And it's more suitable for more web app, not so much enterprise apps. But as I said, it's easy to customize. So what's the starting point of the size calculations? It's the font size. So as a side note, all the variables in Valo are prefixed with this standard V dash thing, and SAS variables of course start with the $. And the font size is by default it's 16 pixels. But to get really close to say Reindeer, we could set that to 12, which is the Reindeer default font size. And we could set the font family as well to default sans serif. And let's just reload that. And now you can see that we already have a much smaller theme. So I can compare with the default here. So now you can put much more stuff on the screen as was requested. So it wasn't that easy.
Yeah, that was easy.
So it's pretty close to Reindeer now. Actually, the button sizes and the spacings are quite close to what Reindeer has.
Yeah. Nice.
But if you don't want to change the font size, just want to make it slightly smaller, we could just keep this font size the same and use the unit size, which is by default calculated from the font size. So you could think of the unit size as if you split your viewport into a grid, like vertical and horizontal lines, equally sized, all those grid cells there. Unit size would be like the width and height of one of those cells.
Okay. Cool.
And that unit size is used, for instance, in the height of a button, text field, combo box, panel, caption, stuff like that. And it's also directly the margin size of layouts, default margin. And there's a limitation that you need to use a pixel size because it's used in a lot of computations with other pixel values. So the default is around 37 pixels. So we could drop that to 30, for instance. So it's slightly bigger than the previous one. But now we keep the font size but still shrink it down somewhat to get a slightly more compact display of items. So those are the two ways to easily customize the size of your theme.
Okay,
I guess we can keep that there.
What's next? Should we look at some color changes? Maybe?
Yes, sure. What would you like to see? So the main color of the theme is called V background color. Now this is by default an HSL value, and if you don't know what HSL means, it's hue, saturation, and lightness. So it's a standard CSS color value, and by default it's something like 110 degrees, and I think it's 0 saturation, and lightness is 98%. So that's almost white, because the saturation is like, it's 0, so it's not saturated at all, and lightness is almost white.
Yeah.
So that should give us exactly the same result as previously. Pretty much, depending on the hue, it might be slightly different. I don't remember exactly. So how does this work now? If you set here, for instance, white, standard hex value, you might end up with stuff like this, and I bet a lot of people have stumbled on this.
Yeah, actually we had a question about this too. So this is kind of weird. Where did all the red come from?
Well, it's from the HSL value of white, because this equals HSL 0 degrees and 0 saturation and 50 lightness. So that's the same as, it was 100. So that's white in an HSL value. So the other accent colors are derived from this hue. So the 0 hue matches in the hue scale. It's red. So that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
So if you want a pure white background color, you need to use, but don't want to touch the hue. You want to keep that the same. You do it like this.
Yeah. Okay.
So now we get the same blue color, but still have a white background.
That explains a lot.
Yeah. This is kind of a slight oversight in the design, but luckily you can work around this. It's just something that I bet confuses people a lot.
Yeah.
So what next? So we have that blue color here, so that's called the focus color. And that is derived from, as I said, from this color by default. So we can set that to something else, like, for instance, orange. And maybe not the best color choice in the world, but
you're the designer.
Yeah, this. I think I might have to actually. There are some issues in the Vaadin SAS compiler using color keywords, so if I use a hex value here, it might work better. Yeah, that was the reason why we got weird font colors. So just a note, stick to standard hex or RGB or HSL color values instead of color keywords. So you'll be better off if you're using the Vaadin SAS compiler, which we are right now. Yeah. Which is pretty great because it actually can understand these relative paths from the jar files. Anyway, there are many of these built-in color variables you can use, so I'll let you dig those up from the documentation yourself, and we can move on to the next. There was actually if we try to, I think we could override some button styles. So if we take the buttons here, And you can see there's a slight gradient here. I don't know how, it's not that pronounced, but maybe we could make it more pronounced. So what controls that is the V gradient variable, and that the one that's supported right now is V linear gradient, and then you specify also the kind of the strength of the gradient. So we now punched it up with 30%, and now it's like more prominent gradient. You could set that to 0 if you want to like eliminate all the gradients. So now it's a flat color. Or you could go all the way to 100 if you want, and that's going to look quite pronounced. The default is, I think, 10%. So that's one variable that controls the look. And then there's the bevel, which is probably something very weird to many. So what that maps to is like inset box shadows.
Okay.
So we could set that to false even, to get rid of all the bevels here. So now we're not having any kind of small highlights and shadows on the button borders there.
Yeah.
But if we let's say inset, and we don't want x coordinates, we want y coordinates, so 1 pixel down.
So this is just the basic syntax for box shadow.
Yes, exactly. So we can use that, and then well, you could specify just default CSS here as well, and that will work. So now we have 2 pixel white inset box shadow there.
Yeah.
But what you also can use instead of these standard CSS colors is these color keywords. So for instance, vtint. So what that does is it takes the background color of the button and tints it. That's a graphic term for mixing the color with white. So as you can see, we now have, for the green button we have a light green, and for the blue button we have light blue. And there are 3 types of color keywords. And there's shade, which mixes the base color with black, as you can see. Mm-hmm. And then there's tone, which works kind of depending on the lightness or luminance value of the base color. If the base color is dark, like for instance in these cases, these colored buttons, the color luminance is dark, then it uses tint. But if the base color is considered light, it's going to use shade, like for instance for these buttons, normal styles. So those are the 3 color keywords you can also use, and you can even modify their strength by using parentheses and adding a number here, for instance 0.6. So it's going to be less pronounced. If we put, for instance, 2 here, it's going to be almost white. Or stronger, at least. Okay. I think I could bump this a bit so we can actually see easier. Maybe the font size even as well. It works pretty much like a zoom in a browser. So if you set the font size to something larger, it's pretty much like a zoom. It doesn't increase the border radiuses or border strengths, but otherwise it's pretty much like a zoom. Maybe that's slightly too much. Let's give it a 20. Okay. All right. So customizing a single component was like one of the things. Now we've affected all the components in the theme. But what if you want to just affect one component? For instance, the button.
You had it already there visible. So
yes.
Let's see. How can you, for example, adjust the border radius of the button component?
Yeah, if you don't want to touch like all the components, so there's the border radius global variable, but that affects everything. So if you want just the button, you first need to do this. So there's the included components list, which contains a list of all the different component names that we include using this main theme include. Yeah. So what we can do is we can remove one of those items. So SAS works like this. So we pass in the list, and then we specify what we want to remove. So we remove the button. So now if I reload now, we should get like buttons without any styles. Actually, I think did I misspell something? Include components. First demo effect. All right, yeah. I was trying to use a variable before it's defined. So some variables need to be defined before the import. So in this case, since the font size affects something which is calculated in these imports, it needs to be defined before we import this, or otherwise the stuff that's affected by the font size wouldn't be affected if we set it afterwards. But the included components list is defined inside these.
Yeah,
so
makes sense.
Yeah, so we can only use that afterwards. So now we don't have button styles at all. So now what we can do is use one of the built-in mixins. So we could go back to the actual documentation here. API/Valo and search for button. And what do we have here? Valo button is the main mixin that produces all the selectors and styles for the button. So the documentation is pretty neat in a way that you see the mixin signature and all the definitions of the parameters you can pass to a mixin or a function, and with the description, of course. And you can actually see the full source of the function or mixin right here by clicking it. So we can now actually view what the Valo button mixin does. Maybe not what we right now need, but anyway, you can pretty easily browse through the full source here. But this is the mixin we want to use. So we include that. And if we reload now, we should be back in the beginning.
Yeah, we got something back.
But now we can actually modify the border radius here. So we can set that to, well, let's say 10 pixels. Default is 4. So this doesn't affect this include anymore, or these imports. So it only affects this include anymore. So it's safe to use that now. So now you can see we have more rounded buttons. And if we compare to, for instance, text fields, they are still the default 4 pixel radius. So that's one way to modify like built-in or single component styles. You might even pass that in, well, actually no. It was the other mixin where you can pass that in directly, the border radius for the button. We'll get there pretty soon.
Yeah.
All right. What else? All right, so I think we could also look at those built-in style variations that there are.
Yeah, let's go there.
So that was actually one point that I wanted to raise here when we looked at this demo application, that all the stuff you see in this demo is actually bundled in the Valo theme, with few exceptions. For instance, the panel styles, these three, those custom colors are not bundled in, and the text field, these variations are not. The arrow style is there, but these three are not. So it's a little bit confusing. This wasn't actually designed to be a demo application, but more of a test application when I developed Valo, but let's not go there now. So there are a lot of great stuff you can use right out of the box. For instance, I would maybe raise tab sheets. So first off, it has two like basic starting points. It has the default like underlined tab style, and then it has the frame style, which is more traditional tab styles.
Yeah.
Could perhaps put this to flat so we get maybe more pronounced borders. And then there's lots of these additional stylings you can slap onto that. So you can center the tabs, you can right align them, or you can make them equal width, so they span the whole width of the tab bar. You can add a little extra chrome to the tab bar, like separate it from its borders. If it's too big for your taste, you can make it slightly smaller, like compact style. We can move the icons on top, stuff like this, and all these also work for the non-framed style as well.
So these are all predefined style names, but
Yes.
how do you know which ones are available and how do you use these?
Yeah, good question. So you can search for in your IDE for this Valo theme class, valotheme.java. So this contains all of the built-in styles. So you can see in the outline that they're prefixed by the component name.
Yeah.
So you can pretty quickly glance over what the certain component offers. And there are quite many. So be sure to check those out. And how do you use those? Well, instead of writing here h1, we could use Valo theme dot label h1. So that's how you use them.
Okay.
But modifying those. So it's redeploying. One sec. So what if we want to modify, let's say, the color of this primary button? So the primary button is one of the components that is built in, and the color is predefined there.
By the way, if you want to know more about how should you use the primary button, you might want to check out the UX Best Practices webinar.
Yeah, that's true.
We had a couple of weeks ago. Go check that out too.
I suggest you check it out. It's very useful.
Yeah.
So to change that color, I think we're going to dive into this same mixin again. So if we look at here, so we have included additional styles here. So this list contains different styles that are going to be included. And here it is. So here starts all the additional styles that the theme has. And first off, we have the primary style here. And we can see that, okay, it's including the button style mixin with the background color of V selection color. Alright, so if we wanted to affect the primary button style, we would do the same thing as before and specify the selection color as something else. Do you have a favorite color?
Let's go with
Pink?
Well, pink is always nice. Let's use that. You're the designer.
Yes.
Once again.
Let's see what we get. So reload. Fingers crossed. There you have it.
That's nice.
Yeah. So that's how you could, for instance, modify that part. So some of the stuff is slightly more involved to override than others, but usually there is a way to override. Well, you could write standard CSS here if you want. That still works. You don't have to use all these variables on mixins if you don't want to. You can still override stuff with CSS. Just look through the DOM and see what you can style. So let's get rid of the pink. What else? So I think we could now start creating our own styles, because I'm pretty sure most of you will need some custom styling in your apps, and all the built-in stuff is not going to be enough. So now I'm going to add actually a new component in it. I have a playground place here in this app I added, so I'll add a new button here. Just call it button, new button, and just say custom style. Add is a style name, custom. You could extract that to a static constant, like so. That's one of the best practices that actually were, I guess, mentioned in the UX webinar. Yeah. You should always add lots of style names in your apps, and don't use magic strings in your Java apps. So let's just add that to the screen. Wait for it to recompile or redeploy. Okay, I messed something up. What did I miss? I think I have a wrong button here. Yes, I imported the Google button. Or quit button. There we go. Now, wait for it. There we go. No custom style yet, so let's define that now. So standard theming stuff or styling stuff, you have the suffix for the main or primary style name. So we define the custom style name here.
Yeah, and if you don't know what selector to use, you can always use the inspector to just take a look at the DOM and see what you
we could just
need.
look here. Okay, here's V button, and we have V button custom here.
Yeah,
that's true. So if you define your own selectors, then you need to use these style prefixed mixins. So these don't expect, or they don't produce the outer style names themselves, so they expect to be inside some context or a custom style name.
Yeah.
So in this case, we could now use the same, maybe the same pink. What do you think? Or you want another color? Maybe?
Let's go with the pink, that's nice.
Okay.
I like it.
It's slightly darker maybe, so it's not that hot. Okay, let's see. Now I think we have some demo effect in place here. Yes. I need to, one moment. Okay. Oops. Let's try now. Now I broke it. I was aiming to remove that. Okay. I guess I need to debug now what's actually causing the text to not be centered. Alright, I think what we are experiencing here is that because we actually removed the button here, we are not getting the default styles for the button.
Okay.
So if I restore the button to the default compilation now, it should work. Yes.
Yeah, now it's hot again.
Yeah, I think so. It's pretty nice. Yeah. So if we look at the signature for the button style, there are a lot of different things you can pass in there. So for instance, there's font size. So that's just like a helper. You could pass in a font size here, but it's actually not used in any computation inside the mixin. So you could just specify it here as well. So this does the same thing as passing in the font size parameter.
Yeah.
So you can like mix and match as much as SAS and CSS as you want. But specifying like the unit size here, and well, background color for instance, that's a good example perhaps. So instead of, if we don't use this background color here, and just specify it here as a standard CSS property, we don't actually get the result we want. So because there's a gradient now on top of our background color.
Yeah.
You could specify background to override that, but now you don't get the bevel and border and font size, font color and stuff like that automatically.
Definitely not hot.
Yeah, so you don't want to go overriding all that stuff yourself using CSS, so that's why you want to use the actual parameter for the mixin. So that computes all the other styles for you. All right, what else? I was thinking maybe doing a panel style, so one of those that are not bundled in with themes. So let's do quickly a new panel. Custom panel caption. And panel, then add component. I'm going to set content. Let's just put a label there now. And add the component here. There we go. Did we get, I guess we got the correct panel, not the width panel. And redeploying, then we have our panel. And also add the custom style name to that. We can use the same one because we scope it to the panel. So now I could actually use the inspector to see the custom style name. So here we have panel caption custom. That's what we want to use. I'll just copy it from here. Go to my theme. And now we can include the Valo panel caption style, which also happens to take the background color as a parameter. So we can use the same pink or purple color that we already have. And there we go. So there are these different mixins for different parts of components you can use, so not just global, like the whole component. There are more modular, lower level mixins you can use also. So yeah, just check those out from the API documentation. All right. What else would we want to discuss still?
We are.
Yeah, I guess our program
but,
time is already up, but
I think we can.
I can't stop. It's so fun.
Yeah, we can still take some examples. So
definitely.
So how about some uniform part of your application if you want to customize everything within, for example, a sidebar or something like that?
Yeah, I guess that's a pretty common use case, I would say. So maybe as an example, if you've used Vaadin for a long time, you know the reindeer theme, and you may know that it offers these blue and black variations. So I'm just gonna quickly show that now we're defining a style name for the whole UI on the top level.
Yeah.
And that affects all the components inside the UI without actually attaching any style names to them. So it's kind of like scoping a different styled thing inside the whole theme. So on the front page here we have like 2 different styles inside the other, like the main theme.
Yeah.
So how would you do that in Valo? First off, I'm going to build a dark variation here. So I'm just going to add not a shortcut listener, but a style name. Let's go with dark for this particular layout here. So that doesn't do much yet.
As expected.
Yes, expected. So let's start defining that. So we create the scope for that, just dark. And we can then include Valo components mixin, which pretty much includes just the component styles, not like anything global like the loading indicator or the main application background color and fonts and stuff like that. So just the individual component styles. Yeah. And we can again now modify the different global variables here. So let's pick up maybe not 5666 because that might bring bad luck. So let's go with 555. So that's a dark gray. So now we should get dark colored components. So, and if you want to actually like have the whole scope have that color, you could specify the background color here then to use the same color. So this mixin doesn't actually produce a background color property, so you need to define that yourself. So now we have the whole layout using the dark color, but you might see that it's not working yet fully.
Yeah.
The panel content is not affected yet, and the main title is not affected. So how come? So I guess we could check the label styles from the documentation. So Valo label, this produces all those different variations, and here we see that okay. So the H1 style color is defined using this function, and it takes the VApp background color. It's as its parameter. So we need to override that as well. So that is affected on the global level by this variable as well. But since it's done in this mixin already, it's not affected if we modify the variable afterwards. So we need to manually override that to the same color. So now we should actually have the panel, well, this worked, and the panel content is maybe, now I need to check the panel content, how that gets calculated. So panel style, here we have this one, check the source. So background color, so it's actually the panel background color. It has a global style, I mean global variable for the background color, so we would need to define that as well. So this might get a little like repeating yourself here, but this is how you can actually override those. Did I misspell something?
I think you had background this time. Background.
Right. I probably have some error message on the console, but let's look at that now. Thank you.
Now it works.
Yeah, so this is a way to build like scoped different looking styles inside your theme.
Yeah, cool. So you want to show another example still, or should we already go to the questions part?
Yeah, I guess we can go to the questions.
Yeah. So in the forums we got a question about TouchKit. Does Valo work with TouchKit?
Unfortunately, no. At this point, TouchKit is a completely separate theme. It was built before Valo was released and actually implemented, so unfortunately those don't work together yet. I don't know any plans about that, so you could ask on the forums and see if you get a response. I don't have any news on if there's going to be a Valo-based TouchKit theme. Okay. Unfortunately.
Too bad. And there's also another question about ways to handle multiple themes in one application.
So, in one application, any more specific? So of course you can have multiple themes in your themes folder and use the set theme method in your UI to actually change that on the fly.
Yeah, Dave here is actually talking about customizing and on-the-fly compiling of multiple themes.
Multiple themes, well that's, yeah, in parentheses. So you actually in Sampler we're pretty much doing that. So we have the different styles in there, like on the fly you can change those and you can change the variables, how that looks. And how that's actually done is that there's a servlet filter that catches the theme request and, well, basically calls the SAS compiler on the server side to produce the styles and just passes in those variables into the same stream for the SAS compiler.
Yeah.
So that's one way to do it, and yeah, on the fly if you want to do that, like compile a new variation of Valo. I don't know if there's any other way, but that's at least one way.
Yeah.
It's a custom servlet filter.
Okay, so what about? Yeah, we got also a question about if we could use Valo to implement material design.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I did have that same idea some time ago, but haven't had time to look into it. So in theory, that should be totally doable. So that's kind of the promise of Valo. You could do that quite easily without like rewriting the whole theme from scratch. But as I said, I haven't tried that. So I can't offer any like practical advice other than look at the API documentation and start trying things out. So we didn't go into, for instance, modifying the built-in animations of the theme, and lots of small details that affect the material design, how that works. So you would need to customize, I guess, quite a lot to get that done. But it still should be easier with Valo than with Reindeer or just starting from scratch.
Yeah.
I guess you can get pretty close. For instance, the Windows 8 kind of mimicking theme, the Metro name theme here. It's just also done with variables, so you can get somewhat far using this, but it still uses like the built-in animations, for instance, when you open a drop-down.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, so I think that's about it for today. If you have any further questions, please post those to the forums and we will read them offline and answer those.
Yeah, I'll try to answer as many questions as possible and try to be more specific in written English than in spoken.
Yeah. So
thanks for joining.
Thanks.
I hope you learned a lot.
Yeah, I learned a couple of nice tricks and myself.
So I hope that we inspired at least some to try out Valo in more detail, not just using the default variation, but actually build something that looks your own. So we can start seeing different looking Vaadin applications on the web.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for watching and see you again in another webinar.
Bye.
Bye.